Yes. The controversial president of Regan Company Publishing and the host of that Regan woman, Judith Regan. Yes. There she is. Oh, I don't have a book on you. Thank you very much. There's your book. I should have plugged that before. And finally, his first album, Under the Table and Dreaming, went triple platinum. Its follow-up is called Crash. Dave Matthews. Come on, Dave. Nice to see you. I have to. Well. Okay. He's not going to sing.
I wish I was.
Wow.
I'm more comfortable doing that.
I guess that shows us where...
Why don't you,
no.
Why don't you let him sing one note and you'll feel more comfortable?
So,
Thank you.
because I want to talk about puberty. Now,
Have you gone through it?
yes, I have. And that's the point. When I went through it, I was a lot older than kids are doing it today, which sounds like a joke, but it's not a joke. This was front page news last week. Puberty signs evident in 7- and 8-year-old girls. Did you see this in the paper?
Yes,
I mean,
yes. I have an 8-year-old son at home who's very excited about this. Seriously.
Well, I don't know what to...
Follow that up, Bill.
I don't know what to say about this. I mean, this is shocking news. How could this be? 7 and 8 is very young, and it says that, yes, they are developing breasts and pubic hair, and 7 and 8, changes that often confuse and alarm them.
But, you know, I just have to say, my sister told me this recently, that when we moved to South Africa in 1980, and she was leaving her school, where she was the only one that hadn't gone into puberty. You know, everyone else had boobs and hairy armpits, and she was about 11. So we went back to South Africa, and she started to sprout. And 6 months later, she went to school, and I think she realized it was a very traumatic moment for her when she was up doing a little stage play with all the other girls, that she was the only one that had gush hair coming out from under her arms. So it's an American phenomenon. That's kind of funny.
Well, I think it is in a sense, because I think that what
it does say U.S. girls.
I think what it indicates is a serious loss of innocence. And I think that if we look at what's going on in this culture, children are growing up too fast. And any woman knows that her menstrual cycle is tremendously affected by things like emotions and experiences and what's happening.
You're saying because of what's going on in the culture, it actually causes physical...
I think
I believe that's true.
very well
I believe that's true. Yes, I do, and I also think our obsession with sex, I think we are obsessed with sex in this culture. I think that girls see on television...
But why would the obsession with sex get into our very
Because our
genes?
minds have an effect on our brains and on our bodies.
Don't blame television for this, right?
No, I'm blaming television. It's the culture. You know, we're growing up too fast.
The proliferation of kiddie beauty pageants. The mothers are saying, get sexy. Look like you have breasts when you don't have it. That's what they do. Another thing, I think, it's something nutritional. There's too much sugar. You know, there's
sugar.
There's sugar-covered cereal, sugar-covered sugar cubes. I mean, I was my grandson's house.
That would retard your growth.
Well, I don't know, but maybe it sets it up.
You're going to hear from the sugar lobby now. No.
Women are going through menopause at an earlier age. The whole acceleration of our lives. We're moving too fast. The kids are growing up too fast. I have 2 children. I have a 16-year-old and a 5-year-old. And I can tell you their experience in childhood is vastly different from mine.
Yes,
they're growing up too fast. Their bodies are responding. It makes perfect sense to me.
There was also an item in the paper yesterday that 4th graders were sent off to a room as a disciplinary measure, 9 4th graders, and wound up engaging in sexual activities.
In Washington, D.C.
In Washington, D.C.
A big story there.
Again, they're exposed to too much sex. It's a loss of innocence.
So you
they see it.
Well, then you are blaming
It's cultural stimulation. It's not just TV. They see it in their homes.
Calvin Klein ads and stuff like that.
It's rampant in the culture. And it's what we think we value. We think we value sex above everything else in this country.
I did, in the 1960s, I had the Dick Van Dyke Show, and we weren't allowed to show that they lived in the same bed. They were in separate beds.
Right.
And I'm watching all these shows now, and I think they're very funny and very well written, but there is a situation in comedy now that is not talking about the size of a person's member.
Yes.
They're not talking about, did you have it yesterday?
You're right.
I saw 3 shows, one in a row. They said, "Did you get laid last night?" And they were talking about, and they were very casually. And I think he'd see that. They say,
No doubt
So you
about
think if we separate the beds in TV shows, those 10-year-olds with boobs, and suddenly actually are younger again.
All right, I understand that. Okay, we have to take a break. We'll come right back. All right, welcome back to American Bandstand. Now, we were talking about, now this study, importantly, is only about girls. The puberty age seems to be lowering only for girls. And I want to ask if there's a connection between the fact that in my lifetime, certainly, the big change in sexuality has been with women. In my mother's day, they didn't used to put out.
And they were right.
And you think they were right?
No doubt about it. Why buy the cow if you can get the milk for free, is what my mother taught me. And she was right. Because women,
Mother taught him that.
and they should.
At least the girls I went out with.
But you held the girls in high regard because of that, and you worked harder to get them. If women give it away, the sexual revolution was devastating for women. It was also devastating for men. But it was worse for women because there was a time, it took us 2,000 years to get men to behave. 2,000 years to get them to marry us, to commit to us, to want to do what they should be doing.
What are you talking about? Men didn't marry in the Middle Ages?
No, I mean, it took us a long time to associate shame with that kind of behavior, with infidelity and so on. So we finally get to the point where men are behaving, and then we say, well, you know what? You don't have to behave. You can have it for nothing. And what was the result? We have single mothers all over this country raising children by themselves.
You must have a hard time getting women.
I do.
Now, the women who throw themselves at you, the women who say, take me, I'm yours.
Yeah.
But you got any leftovers,
Do you-
Dave? That's what I know.
Do you have respect for them?
No, it's strange. It's kind of overwhelming. When I was 15, I probably would have been like, yeah. But now it's sort of more like, I should be your uncle or something. But or sometimes, and other times, you know, I leave the room after I've convinced them I'm their uncle and kick myself. And
How important is it to have an intimate, loving relationship?
I think the
Isn't
only thing
that
that
the
matters.
most important thing? I
Yeah,
mean,
no,
do you want to sexualize women and say they're just, you know, objects
but
for us to play
I mean,
with?
where are
I
you
think
getting-
that in the 60s, I definitely think that was an attempted suicide for the, or it wasn't an attempted suicide, but it was devastating for the feminist movement because suddenly they were using this modern kind of attitude that the men were using, and women like, don't be old-fashioned, you know, on your back, and, you know, and so I think it's true. I think it's terrible.
And look at what happened to women.
Wait a second. I think your premise is false. For all of us regular guys, believe me, they're not giving it away. Carl.
But it's not accurate.
They were in the 60s. They did in the 60s
Well, the
and in
60s are a long
That
time
was the
away.
sexual revolution.
You know, all women think every other woman is giving it away for free. Every woman thinks every other woman is
You know
a slut.
something? Those girls in the 60s are today's mothers telling their daughters not to give it away.
Well, that's
for free.
because they raised their kids by themselves.
Yeah, well, I think what has happened is, well, you're right about that, but I don't think that's because of a permissive sexual attitude. I think it's because people, the institution of marriage in many people's minds it's changed. It's not as sacrosanct as it used to be, and people don't stay together as long as they used to.
That's the general permissiveness of the whole culture. And one of the permissive things that we do is,
So what's the cure?
or did, is to have sex.
What's the cure? Shall we reduce
You know
choice?
what? One of the cures, no, one of the cures is to tell women, do not give it away. Make him earn you. Make him invest
The
in you.
interesting thing is that men didn't tell women to give it away. Somehow
Right.
the women said,
I'm not saying
hey,
it's the men.
I want to
The men
give
and
it
the
to you
women are
because
in
I
it
want to
together.
be equal to you. See, when I was a kid, I had a different perception. My memory of how men got women is you grab them by the hair, the cavemen, and they drag them in, and that was your woman. And I said, I could never do that. My perception was wrong, too, because I was very shy. I said, if I have to do that, I'll never get a woman. No, I'm saying the woman did it to herself, actually.
I agree with you. I agree with you. And they did it together.
Yes.
And women now have to take it back and say, we're not going to do this anymore.
I think they've been taking
Make
it back,
him
though, in the
pay.
age of AIDS, don't you think?
Yes,
that's-
in large part.
Age
It's
is
changing.
maybe I'm not. It's a sweeping statement, but I think the promiscuity that came from the '60s definitely made something like AIDS much
And
more.
I have to tell you, my son, who's 16 years old, is
Impact.
much more conservative than my peers who are in their 40s. Much more conservative. He and his friends, they hang out in gangs. He is still a virgin.
He's in a gang?
Yeah.
Oh, he's in a conservative gang.
Doing drive-by.
Your son, Alan
These big groups, they
Greenspan,
hang
George
together.
Well. It's a great gang. We have to take a break. I'm sorry. I'll come back. We'll be right back. got onto the sexual revolution there, and you said the old thing about, you know, giving away the milk and the cow. But, you know, if you posit that that is the big weapon that a woman has, is sex, isn't that...
No, that is not the only weapon a woman has. A woman has many
sort of
weapons.
what you're saying.
No,
you're
I'm
saying once you fire that shot, you're out of ammo.
In part,
Unless
yes.
you're very, very, very good at it.
So then practice would be a good idea. So then starting earlier would be a good idea. But I'm not saying that that'd be a good idea. But what if people maybe if we drop the age of consent and close our eyes, maybe we make the year shorter, then people would get older earlier, and then have that whole thing going.
Well, you know, if people are reaching puberty at such an earlier age, should we drop the age of consent?
I bet Roman Polanski would appreciate that.
Yeah, exactly.
He'd be able to come back in the country again.
I think if kids knew that they're going to be doing this for the rest of their lives and find out, we did a picture where people at 50 are very sexual. They get very passionate.
Thank you.
If we let kids know that you don't have to get it all in that first year,
That's right.
you want to get the rest of your life until you die, and it's good.
I think that they should stay innocent longer.
The audience is very excited by that girl.
You know,
I think we should the innocence. I think that we should
tough.
extend the innocence
That is
longer.
a tough thing to do, to
Well,
ever return to innocence. Do you know what the age of
It is.
consent
Once it's gone, it's gone.
in Japan is 12?
But she's right about this.
In Japan is
What
12.
does that mean?
You know, you got to remember, though, something. Teenagers are a fairly recent invention in the history of humankind. They were created, yes, they were created by the Industrial Revolution. In agrarian societies, once you got to puberty, 12, 13, you got behind the plow, you got married, Romeo and Juliet, et cetera, et cetera. It wasn't until the Industrial Revolution that suddenly we got this buffer period between childhood and adulthood.
When you got behind the plow.
Yeah, agrarian societies. Farmers.
Oh.
Farmers, Bill, I'm sorry. I didn't mean...
I thought it was a gay thing.
I've got one late night now, aren't we? That's okay.
Yes, so that doesn't mean there weren't teenagers.
Well, no, they were not teenagers. They were adults. They were adults. And once they turned, there was no long adolescence buffer period between childhood and adulthood.
I think
this is a rather modern development, but still, just because you're physically developed doesn't mean you're mentally developed. Doesn't mean you're socially developed. I think Judith's got a very good point there.
But nature made people able to have children. As soon as you start menstruating, you're a potential mother, and that's the way nature made it.
Why do you point at me?
Oh, I don't.
Nature also designed us to run around and sow the wild oats as much as we can, and that's also
No,
really not.
that's what nature did to you.
Yeah.
There are big gender differences.
No, I said us. I didn't say us like this.
And,
I said us over here.
well, okay.
And you're
I'm still a man.
And you're saying
And
the
there
only
are
way to
gen-
make it, you use the phrase make us behave. Now, we
Yes.
could be a little upset about that.
Why?
The idea that we are animals that have, once you get an electronic leash.
It's probably a good idea for some of you.
That would be probably a good idea.
Now, there are men, whose natural inclination is to want to go from tree to tree to tree like dogs do. Okay?
I'm not talking
It
about
happens. It happens.
Are we talking about urination or sex?
Yeah,
Women do not have that same natural inclination. Women
Right.
want to nurture and
But-
raise
but if
children
you-
in a protected
but
environment.
if you base your power on sex, isn't that at some point going to wane? Shouldn't your power over men not be based on sex?
No, because that's
ultimately
what
don't
men care about.
Bill,
in
what
large
she's saying
part.
in her delicate
In-
way is that men think with their you-know-what.
They do,
She's saying,
especially
yes.
during that period
Since
of
you're
time.
not on cable anymore, I won't be any more specific than that. They can know what I'm talking
But-
about.
But since that is always going to wane a little bit, shouldn't the relationship be based on something else
Yes,
that makes
of
us
course
want
it
to
should.
stay?
It should be based on intimacy and love and caring and building a family together and sharing experiences and being responsible and not leaving your children. My son is 16 years old and all of his friends, most of them come from divorced families. Most of them were raised by
you
their
divorced?
mothers. Yes, or trying to be.
Well, get it. It's worth
No, my son was raised by me. I did not marry his father. And I raised him as a single mother from the time he was a little boy.
And here you are
And here I
criticizing
am.
society.
Oh, look, I made some